Let's talk about the elephant in the room. No, I mean, let's talk about it literally. Literally the elephant in the room. The story of the elephant in the room, or the concept, comes from Ivan Krylov 200 years ago. He mentions a man that went to a museum and he saw all sorts of little things, but he didn't even notice the biggest thing that was in the room, the elephant. Now, if English is your first language, you'll know exactly what this means. Basically, it's a phrase that's used in common speech whenever there's a massive problem amidst people, but all of us are ignoring because no one wants to talk about it. So what we do is we talk around it, we talk under it, and we focus on the inconsequential things, the little things, because we're too afraid to talk about the main thing, the elephant. And to talk about the elephant in the room means bringing the subconscious implicit stuff into the conscious realm explicitly. And so we talk about other things. Now, why do we do this? Well, there's obviously a reason why no one wants to face it. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe it's a shameful thing, maybe it's taboo, maybe it'll cause conflict, maybe someone will be shamed. Well, what we do know is that there's an unpredictable danger under the surface, so we pretend it isn't there. We tend to avoid it. And this is such a great idiom to illustrate what Arthur Nezu and his colleagues talk about as dysfunctional avoidant styles to problem solving. Now, if we apply avoidant problem solving to a situation, we don't actually solve the problem, we tend to make it worse. And the thing about elephants is that you can never afford to ignore them. In my early 20s, I actually worked as an anti-poaching game ranger in Tanzania. I know. I like to think I'm quite a hardcore, just don't ask my wife. But we literally used to catch poachers, legitimately. And while I was there, I learned quite a lot about wildlife. Now, something that struck me was what I learned about the difference between lions and elephants. Now, if you had to ask most people, which one of those two animals is the most dangerous, most people would say lions, right? No, it's elephants. They are more dangerous than lions. Apparently, lions kill about 200 people a year, and elephants about 500. On the surface, you wouldn't feel as much fear towards elephants as you would to a lion. Elephants are vegetarians, they're pretty slow moving. I'm not made of vegetables, so I'm going to be more worried about the lions. I'm made of meat and they're carnivores. But if you come across a lion in the wild, you can tell pretty much immediately if they pose a threat. They're a predictable danger. If they're hungry, you know it. But if they've recently eaten, they just kind of lie there looking at you. They're completely docile. You tend to always know where you stand with a lion. If they're sitting there on the side, you can kind of just walk away without worry. I mean, okay, it is pretty scary. It is a lion, but at least you know. But with an elephant, it's difficult to tell whether they're going to be dangerous. They're unpredictable. And you don't know what kind of trauma those elephants have faced in the past. They store stuff in their memories. They're not going to attack you to eat you. But you know that saying that elephants never forget? Well, there are actually a lot of things that an elephant might forget, but they've got an incredible memory for trauma. Their memories serve as protection. They never forget what they need to do in order to survive. For instance, elephants who were threatened by a certain local tribe, well, they might react negatively when they smell something that reminds them of that tribe that used to terrorize them all those years ago. It gets carried through genetically. Now, there's no way of knowing whether you are safe or not with an elephant, not like with a lion. So it pays to give attention to the elephant constantly, to be aware and to be prepared. You can't afford to turn a blind eye to an elephant. You actually can't ignore it. You have to respect it and you have to give it the attention it deserves. Now, the way elephants remember trauma is very similar to how humans do. Their hippocampus and their amygdala focus a lot like ours do. The human amygdala spends more than 2/3 of its neurons just looking for things that are threatening. And then it stores those memories of trauma in order to protect us in the future. Now, when it comes to the proverbial elephant in the room, well, whatever that thing is that people are ignoring, well, it might not be dangerous, but ignoring it might be. Ignoring a problem is always a bad idea. Problems have to be dealt with in effective and adaptive ways, in functional ways, not maladaptive, dysfunctional ways. You're just compounding the problem. And avoidance is mostly dysfunctional. What Arthur Nezu and his colleagues suggest is that we respond to problems with what they call emotion-focused problem solving. And to do that requires emotional intelligence. If everyone in the team knows that Derek, for instance, is actually the one at fault, but maybe he's driving his subordinate under the bus instead, well, ignoring that because it could cause embarrassment for him, well, that's not the answer. If Derek reports to you, you've got to deal with it. If everyone in the room knows, for instance, that sales is going badly, but everyone's too ashamed to deal with it head on, well, that might destroy the whole company. If everyone in the room knows that the way you deal with employees is largely hypocritical, well, that can really do some damage. And if they know that employee X isn't being held accountable because he's your favorite, but employee Y, well, they get publicly shamed for doing the same thing, well, that elephant will destroy your leadership. Now, I could go on and on, but here's my point. The elephant in the room is more dangerous than you realize, and ignoring it, well, that's not going to help. Leadership, and in fact just healthy human social functioning, requires elephants to be dealt with, to be appropriately dealt with, assertively. And if you don't, well, it's not the elephants that won't feel safe. It's not the elephants who won't forget. It's your colleagues. It's your team. It's your direct reports. It's the people that you work with. Those are the ones that are not going to feel safe. Those are the ones that won't forget. Those are the ones that are going to feel it. Do you want to build effective teams? Well, you need to learn how to deal with the elephants in the room. And emotional intelligence, that's what's going to help. Let's build an emotionally intelligent world. And let's do it together. Inward and upward.